Hello there, guys. Welcome back once again. We're still on making decision using statistics. Okay, so we looked at a problem where we calculate the average age of dying from COVID-19, and we concluded that it doesn't mean if you more than age of 60 only, but even young people, just the risk of being hospitalized or dying from that is lower. It's an interesting problem we solve using data and arriving at some conclusion. Then the second problem was the smoking amongst young people. Okay, so we can see that it's really decreased, which is a good news, and we hope now it's actually decreased more compared to the year 2002. Now what we're going to look at is a problem in an investment. How can we use statistics to make decisions in finance? Let's see what we have. So we're going to look at investments. So there is a question. A hedge fund manager plans to invest a certain amount of money every month. One of the three funds which they have shortlisted for investments. Okay. So if the hedge fund managers wishes to avoid volatility, remember volatility, we're talking about risk. There is no free lunch. There will be a risk, but we want to reduce the chances of losing the funds. Are we all together? Okay. So what does hedge fund manager mean? Have you heard of the word hedge fund? A hedge fund manager, your parents or people you know that they might be investing money for retirement. And a hedge fund, hedge is to, like a hedgehog, the animal hedgehog. If a hedgehog is being attacked, it rolls into a ball, it's protect. So it comes from the word hedgehog, to hedge, to protect your money, to reduce the risk. So a hedge fund manager will take money from different people, different corporations, and invest it and grow that money so that maybe when you retire, you have enough money. So that's what a hedge fund manager do. So they'll calculate the risk and make decisions. Some of the decisions will be based on statistics. Let's look at how we can make a decision for this kind of hedge fund manager. So let's see what we have. So here we have returns for the last 5 years given. Returns is like think of that as a performance of a bank each and every year. So we have Bank A. Year one, their return was 10%. Whatever they invested, they made 10%. Year two, they just made 6%. Year three, only 3%, which they managed to make on whatever they have. Then year four, 9%. Year five was similar to 9%. Then the second bank, which is shortlisted by the hedge fund manager, they made a 5%, a 10%, 9%, 8%, and 5%. Bank C, which is 6%, 7%, 6, 7, and 15. Bank C looks lucrative based on 15. But is that the best? On year 5, outperformed Bank B by 10% and outperformed the first bank by 6%. But we can't really predict, what will have happened in year 5. So let's see. What statistic tool should we use? Let's see. One is the measure of dispersion. Remember that the measure of dispersion is how the data is spread out. There are three commonly used measures of dispersion, which is the range, interquartile range, and the standard deviation. And remember that the range is the maximum minus the minimum, which gives us the range. Are we together? Then the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q2, meaning the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. Are we together? What is different between the range and the interquartile range? The range can be what? Can be affected by the extreme values, the high and the lows. Where the interquartile range cannot, because it's in between, it uses 50% of the data in the middle, cannot be affected by the interquartile range. The standard deviation, which is actually one of the good ones, it uses all the data, which is the average deviation from the average. Are we together? So now let's see. So let's talk about that. If the scores are spread out, then the range will be higher and the score less consistent. Okay? If the scores are close together, then the range will be lower and the score will be more consistent. And we know that the range is the maximum value minus the minimum value. Are we together? The highest minus the lowest. If the gap between them is bigger, so it's a bit inconsistent. But if the highest minus the lower, the deviation is small, the data might be consistent. So as a hedge fund manager, do you want a bank that will be consistent, that will give you, if they promise 60%, they'll give you the 6%? Or do you want a bank that will give you 15% and next year give you 3%? So making those decisions also will depend on individual. But we know that this hedge fund manager wants to avoid the risk. Okay. Now, the standard deviation. The standard deviation is widely used in statistics. It measures the spread. It is based on all values in the data. So it is sensitive to the presence of outliers in the data. Are we all together? Okay. Now, let's look at the actual problem. So the standard deviation, we know it can be calculated by using this formula, but we can use our calculator. So, this implies is the actual numbers minus the mean, and you square that, and you divide by the sample size. Okay. Okay, so the standard deviation is widely used in statistics and measures the spread. So, which you use that. So to use this formula, it's better to group the data first. But we'll use our calculator. I'll show you how to use the calculator to calculate the standard deviation. So a hedge fund manager plans to invest in a certain amount, okay, for every month in one of the three funds, which they've shortlisted them, which we agreed is A, B, and C. There's three banks. The rate of returns for the last 5 years given. This is the performance. Think of this as performance for the last 5 years. And he wishes to avoid volatility, which is risk. Let's look at Bank A. To decide which bank is best, let's compare the mean return for each. So the mean is the average. So the mean will be 10 plus 6 plus 3 plus 9 plus 9. Are we all together? Divided by 5. So that gives us 7.4% to one decimal place. So the average performance of Bank A is 7.4% in the past 5 years. Now let's look at the second bank. So Bank B, we calculate the average for the second bank, which is the mean. The mean will be 5 plus 10, 5, 10, 9, 8, and 5, and divided by 5, which is 37 over 5, which gave us 7.4. Interesting. Bank A and Bank B, the average in the past 5 years is the same. Does it mean it doesn't matter which one I choose? Or we must explore more? Okay? Okay, let's see. Let's look at bank C. Bank C, which is 6 plus 7 plus 6 plus 7 plus 15. If we calculate the mean give us, if we add everything, give us 41. 41 over 5, which is 8.2%. Interesting. The first two banks give us 7.4%, and Bank C give us 8.2%. So let's look at the mean. So this is Bank A, B, C. What do you choose if you calculate the mean? You say, oh, I want more money. I will go with 8.2%. It doesn't matter whether you choose A or B. The mean return for the past 5 years is 7.4%. What would you go with? Let's explore. This tells us, on average, Bank C will give a higher return. That's it. It will give a higher return. But remember, it's average. Doesn't mean exactly will give us 8.2%. It could be lower. It could be higher. That's what average means. Even those 7.4% could be higher or lower. I think we'll need to do some more exploration and see. I'm not going to conclude based on the average. Let's go more and see what we can do. Let's compare the range. Now the range for Bank A ranges maximum minus minimum. The maximum for A is 10, and the minimum is 3, which give us 7%. B, the range, the maximum is 10, and the lowest is 5. So the range is 5%. C, the maximum is 15, and the minimum is 6. The range for C is 9. Interesting. What does that mean? If you look at this, Bank C has a high range compared to Bank A and B. So that means Bank C not that consistent in terms of returns. The bank which is actually more consistent is Bank B. Are you going to go with consistency or not? Or you want to a higher return? Then you make those kind of decisions. So it doesn't mean same data we arrive at the same decision. It will depend. What do you want? What are you trying to achieve? So based on this, the range for the return is smaller for Bank B. This means Bank B is more consistent or reliable in terms of performance. Are we together? Okay. Now we're going to compare the standard deviation now. Okay. So I'll say mean and standard deviation, those can be calculated using a calculator. Let's see how we can calculate the standard deviation. So I can calculate the standard deviation using my calculator. I'm going to use an example using A. So to do that, let's see. We're going to say, let me clear everything. We're going to say mode, stats number 2, and we select var 1. Then we insert the data, which is 10. We're going to put Bank A, which is 10, equal 6, 3, equal, then 9, equal, then what? Another 9 again, equal. Then we're going to say AC, shift 1. Then we're going to go var, which is 5, equal. Then we're going to select 4, which is equal. That is our standard deviation. That's how we calculate the standard deviation. Now let's see. So the standard deviation for bank A is 2.88. The standard deviation for bank B is 2.3. And the standard deviation for bank C is 3.83. So we have the mean range standard deviation. Bank C has the highest standard deviation. Remember, highest standard deviation will mean risk. So based on the hedge fund manager, because he wants to avoid risk, the bank with the lowest standard deviation is B. You'll have to go with B because you're trying to avoid risk. Okay, now let's see what we can say from that. So what does this mean? A high return standard deviation highlights that the bank's risk is high and the return is more volatile in its nature and such unstable as well, which is actually bank C. Hence, bank C is higher risk and bank B is lower. Okay. Now, we can represent this. It's a standard deviation, return, which is the average. See what we get. What does that mean? So it implies C. Can you see that? C is actually higher risk. Okay? So the bank which is actually better, lower risk would be that. Between A and B, I wouldn't take A because they give the same return. Okay, they give the same return, but B, it's lower risk. Are we together? So this is what we have in summary. So actually, bank B is the best that the hedge fund manager must take. Okay, because A and B, same return, but B is lower risk. Why you want to take A? Okay, great guys. I hope you enjoyed, and we hope to see you soon. And have fantastic time and keep working hard. Cheers from us.